From the moment early humans first looked skyward and watched birds soar effortlessly through the air, the dream of flight took root in the human imagination. Ancient legends, like that of Daedalus and Icarus, captured the thrill and danger of reaching for the heavens. In 15th century Italy, Leonardo da Vinci sketched flying machines that resembled birds, flapping wings powered by human strength, although none were ever built. The first true breakthroughs came in the 18th century when the Montgolfier brothers launched a hot air balloon into the skies of Paris in 1783, carrying a sheep, a duck, and a rooster into history as the first aerial passengers. But controlled flight still remained elusive. By the late 19th century, inventors like Germany's Otto Lilienthal were building gliders, experimenting with lift, pitch, and wing curvature. Lilienthal's daring flights off hillsides earned him the title the Glider King. But a crash in 1896 tragically claimed his life. His sacrifice, however, paved the way for those who would finally turn dreams into reality. The pieces of the puzzle, lift, propulsion, control, were scattered across history, waiting for someone to bring them together. In a small bicycle shop in Dayton, Ohio, two unassuming brothers, Orville and Wilbur Wright, quietly obsessed over the problem of powered flight. Without formal scientific training, but with deep mechanical intuition, they built wind tunnels to test wing shapes and studied bird flight meticulously. They understood that controlling an aircraft in the air was just as vital as getting it into the air. In 1903, they traveled to the windy sands of Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, with a strange, skeletal machine called the Wright Flyer. On December 17, 1903, Orville took the first turn, lifting off the ground for 12 seconds and flying 120 feet. Wilbur followed. That day, they made 4 flights, the longest lasting nearly a minute. What they had built wasn't just a flying machine. It was a working, controllable airplane. The world barely noticed at first, but the brothers returned home, refined their design, and by 1905 had created the first practical aircraft. The age of flight had begun, not in the halls of academia or the military labs, but in the dusty back room of a bike shop. As word of the Wrights' success spread slowly through newspaper reports and exhibitions, aviation fever began to ignite across the globe. In 1908, Wilbur Wright stunned European audiences by demonstrating their machine in France, proving the Americans had indeed cracked the code of flight. In the same year, Orville made public flights in the US, circling fairgrounds and astonishing onlookers who had never imagined sustained, controlled flight. Soon others entered the field. Glenn Curtiss in America built his own aircraft and would become a fierce rival of the Wrights, especially in legal battles over patents. In Brazil and France, Alberto Santos Dumont flew his own designs, while across Europe, competitions and air races encouraged ever bolder designs and longer flights. By 1911, aircraft were crossing the English Channel and reaching altitudes over 10,000 feet. The world's imagination had caught fire, but this new technology wasn't just a marvel, it was about to become a weapon. When the guns of World War I thundered to life in 1914, the airplane was pressed into military service with shocking speed. At first, aircraft served as eyes in the sky, scouting enemy trenches and relaying troop positions. But it wasn't long before pilots began carrying pistols, then rifles, then machine guns. A new kind of warrior was born, the fighter pilot. Duels in the skies, called dogfights, became legendary. Germany's Manfred von Richthofen, the Red Baron, scored 80 kills before being shot down in 1918. In America, Eddie Rickenbacker became the top ace with 26 aerial victories. Aircraft technology evolved rapidly under wartime pressure. Wooden frames gave way to aluminum, horsepower doubled, speeds and maneuverability increased exponentially. Bombers like the Handley Page and Zeppelin airships targeted enemy cities and railways. By the time the war ended, aviation had matured from a novelty into a strategic instrument of war, and the post-war world was hungry for more. The 1920s and 30s marked a glittering era of exploration, celebrity pilots, and technological leaps. Charles Lindbergh, a 25-year-old American male pilot, became a global icon after completing the first solo nonstop flight across the Atlantic in 1927. flying from New York to Paris in the spirit of St. Louis. The world watched in awe. A few years later, Amelia Earhart made history as the first woman to cross the Atlantic solo. Meanwhile, commercial air travel began its ascent. Airlines like Pan American World Airways offered scheduled flights to the Caribbean and South America. Aircraft like the Douglas DC-3, introduced in 1935, could carry passengers across the country comfortably and safely, transforming aviation from spectacle to service. Air shows and stunt pilots drew huge crowds. The idea that anyone someday might fly across the world was no longer fantasy, but storm clouds loomed once again, and aviation would soon be tested on a scale never seen before. World War II was the crucible in which aviation was reborn as an unstoppable force. Every major battle had an air component. In the Battle of Britain, RAF pilots flying Spitfires and Hurricanes defended the skies against waves of German Luftwaffe bombers. In the Pacific, aircraft carriers and their fighter squadrons clashed in titanic duels over oceans, with battles like Midway decided in the skies. On the ground, bombers like the B-17 Flying Fortress and Lancaster leveled cities in night raids, bringing unprecedented destruction. Jet propulsion was introduced late in the war with the German Messerschmitt Me-262, but it was too late to turn the tide. In the final chapter of the war, aviation reached a terrifying climax. The Enola Gay, a B-29 superfortress, dropped an atomic bomb on Hiroshima on August 6, 1945. The world had changed forever. When the war ended, aviation wasn't just about winning wars. It was about redefining human capability. With war behind them, the world turned to connection. The jet age had arrived. In 1952, Britain launched the de Havilland Comet, the first commercial jetliner. Despite early setbacks, it paved the way for safer, faster travel. The real breakthrough came in 1958 with Boeing's 707, ushering in a new era of global connectivity. Suddenly, what took days by ship now took hours by plane. The 1960s saw the rise of air travel as a symbol of modern luxury. Plush seats, full meals, in-flight bars. The crown jewel arrived in 1970, the Boeing 747 jumbo jet, capable of carrying over 400 passengers. Airports expanded, flight became more affordable, and the world shrank. Tourism exploded. Business went global. Airlines boomed. The sky was no longer the limit. It was just the beginning. Not content with the skies, mankind set its eyes on the stars. While airliners filled the atmosphere, rocket engineers were reaching higher. In 1961, Yuri Gagarin became the first human in space. In 1969, Neil Armstrong stepped onto the moon. Aviation and spaceflight became intertwined. Meanwhile, in the skies below, engineers launched a new marvel, the Concorde, a supersonic jet capable of flying twice the speed of sound. It began commercial service in 1976, flying from London to New York in under 3.5 hours. It was sleek, fast, and a symbol of prestige, though it served only the elite. Supersonic travel was breathtaking, but expensive and environmentally taxing. Still, it proved the sky wasn't the final frontier. It was the gateway to something greater. The story of aviation is far from over. It's entering a bold new chapter. Today, engineers are racing to build electric aircraft, hydrogen-powered engines, and autonomous flying taxis. Startups like Joby Aviation and giants like Airbus are betting on a cleaner, quieter future. Supersonic travel may return, with companies like Boom Supersonic planning new high-speed jets. And beyond the atmosphere, SpaceX, Blue Origin, and NASA are designing spacecraft that blur the line between aviation and space exploration. Commercial flights to orbit, moon bases, Mars. The next great leap is coming, but one thing remains constant. Just like Orville and Wilbur Wright over a century ago, we're still looking to the sky and asking, what's next?